Residential site valuation and cost approach, page 6. Since they may limit development, thus affecting property values, land may be more valuable with an office building instead of a house, but zoning laws may not permit that land usage. Other zoning ordinances may also restrict how and where the building may be constructed on the property. Minimum lot size and building height limits, setback and side yard rules, permitted building density, off-street parking requirements, and other things which a local government may feel are necessary. Exceptions to zoning laws are possible, but often not easily obtained. Building codes. Building codes set construction standards which require builders to use particular methods and materials. A local government usually has many building codes, such as fire codes, plumbing codes, electrical codes, etc. In most states, minimum building standards are set by state law, but a local government can require more. The appraiser must consider whether or not the proposed highest and best use for the property can be economically done, given the applicable building code regulations that must be complied with. Example: putting a large commercial building on a property located in a floodplain may require additional foundation support or superstructure reinforcement to keep the structure in line with the state and local building codes. This will add to development costs. Building codes vary substantially depending on location. For example, building codes in California will be more stringent due to potential earthquakes than building codes in areas that are not prone to earthquakes. Hurricane-prone areas and heavy snow areas are other examples of areas with possible stringent codes. Environmental protection laws are land use controls at state and federal levels, increasing as a means to protect the environment. Regulations can involve blocking or restricting the use of land where there are environmental concerns. Sometimes this conflicts with land owners' usage of land. For example, land cannot be used for a hazardous waste site or some industrial uses without government approval. The government also controls land use in protecting wildlife, endangered species, and wetlands. Federal agencies may deem land a safe haven or a protected area that cannot be developed. Eminent domain. Eminent domain is the government's constitutional power, right to take or appropriate or condemn private property for public use, as long as the owner is paid just compensation. Eminent domain affects real estate because of government involvement in fair market pricing and by making adjacent land more or less valuable depending on a proposed use. For instance, freeway interchange versus a landfill. Remember, eminent domain is the right, condemnation is the action. Taxation. Taxation is the process of government levying a charge upon people or things. This is specifically talking about property taxes, called ad valorem taxes. Low taxes might encourage real estate activity in certain area, whereas high taxes could have the opposite effect. Special assessments. Do not confuse this with. Extra note. I don't know what the hell. Oh yeah, something about condemnation is the action. That was the thing to look out for. Page 7. Special assessments, do not confuse this with special assessments that are levied by homeowners associations, HOA. Are taxes levied only against properties that benefit from the public improvement, a new sewer line. Although the property benefits from this, the resulting higher taxes could cause buyers to shun the property in favor of substitutes that do not have to pay the tax. All of these have the potential to affect the value of real estate in the marketplace. Escheat. Escheat is when property reverts to the state after a person dies without leaving a valid will or without heirs. Property also reverts to the state after abandonment. The thinking goes that since the rights of property ownership are derived from the government, those rights should revert to the state if they are not assigned to someone else by the owner, or if there are no heirs. Government actions can affect the value of real estate in an area by disposing of the land or utilizing it in certain ways that are beneficial or detrimental on other properties in the area. Private restrictions. A former owner of developer can impose private restrictions on land. These restrictions may or may not have an impact on land value, depending on their purpose, on their severity of these restrictions. The two main types of private restrictions that this unit will focus on are deed restrictions and easements. Deed restrictions. Deed restrictions are limitations on real property use imposed by a former owner through language included in the deed. These may also be called restrictive covenants, especially if they are recorded in a later document. Deed restrictions or restrictive covenants that are recorded run with the land and are thus enforceable against future owners of the property. Note, however, that deed restrictions and restrictive covenants must touch and concern the land in order to be legal and binding on future transfers. Usually these restrictions make a new owner promise not to use property in a particular way. Example: suppose fast food enterprises decides to build a new location a few doors down from an old location. Instead of remodeling the existing restaurant, when they go to sell the old land, they would likely include a deed restriction that would prohibit another fast food restaurant from using that location to compete against them. Depending on the dynamics of the marketplace, this type of restriction may or may not have a negative impact on value. A declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC and R, is often placed in the deed by the original subdivider of the land. Although CC and Rs can also be added later, the purpose of CC and Rs is to keep the subdivision attractive and protect market value on homes. Examples include deed restrictions, such as setting a minimum size of house that must be built on the land, or prohibitions against certain types of fences. These types of deed restrictions can have a positive impact on value because they promote conformity in the neighborhood. Severe restrictions could hurt property value, but this is usually not the case with subdivisions, CC and Rs. Extra note: there is a place south of St. Pius that has bad CC and Rs.